Good morning, and welcome to the virtual worship service of the Unitarian Universalist Meeting House of Provincetown, where we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and where we support each other on our spiritual search for truth and meaning. My name is Reverend Kate Wilkinson, and I'm so glad that you have joined us this week for our service, Claw Marks. The sermon this morning will be preached by my colleague, Reverend Chris Jablonski, who has visited us in Provincetown many times, including leading an Easter service for us while I was on sabbatical several years ago. We're going to hear from him one more time this summer too, since he and I are part of a summertime pulpit exchange. Chris's service today is perfect for the time we are in right now, when we aren't quite ready to give up the way we thought that this summer and fall would be for the way that it actually is. You'll notice that Chris uses a favorite reading of mine that I've shared with you before, Fault Line by Robbie Walsh. It feels more pertinent than ever. I hope this service helps you ease into your day exactly how it unfolds, and maybe even help you to relax your grip on something larger than just today, whatever that might be for you. And now, as I light our chalice here in the Meeting House Sanctuary, I invite you to light a candle wherever you are. In that way, we can feel connected even while we are apart.
A Flame to Light Our Path by Deborah Burrell. Fire consumes and casts a light. May our chalice flame consume our regrets for the past, our fears about the future, and our worries about today. May it light for us a path of joy and peace.
Love is the spirit of this meeting house. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Our reading this morning is a poem by Lynn Unger called The Way It Is. The way it is. One morning you might wake up to realize that the knot in your stomach had loosened itself and slipped away, and that the pit of unfulfilled longing in your heart had gradually and without your really noticing been filled in, patched like a pothole, not quite the same as it was, but good enough. And in that moment, it might occur to you that your life, though not the way you had planned it, and maybe not even entirely the way you wanted it, is nonetheless persistently, abundantly, miraculously, exactly the way it is.
There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding all. I rest with this love. There is a love holding us. There's a love holding all that we love. There is a love holding us. We rest in this love. There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding all. I rest in this love. I rest in this love. I rest in this love.
I am usually a pretty gifted sleeper. I snore, so I am told, and I even suppose I can attest to, because on more than one occasion I have woken myself up with my own snoring. A complex experience in which I hear myself, am frustrated with myself, and forgive myself soon after, all half asleep. But this one night, I couldn't sleep. I was torn open and weeping. I could feel my marriage crumbling to pieces in my hands. We had been together for a few years, then married for a few years. She was wonderful, and for a while we were wonderful together. And after lots of good, hard, mutual, and loving work on our relationship, we decided that it had run its course. We decided that we would get divorced. I remember that moment, the realization descending on me that it was over. And I went to bed that night in the guest room and wept. I could feel it crumbling. I could see it shattering. Everything I thought would be, my plans, the future, so many ideas, dreams, assumptions, all turning to sand and running through my fingers, and it hurt. It hurt to let go. I love this quote from the writer David Foster Wallace. He says, "Everything I have let go of has claw marks on it." The idea being, of course, that he held on with all his might, digging his claws in as the things he had to let go of were wrenched away. I pray for myself and for all of you more graceful experiences of letting go, slightly less claw marks. We think our lives will be a particular way. And with the claw marks, when we hold on to the ideas of how life should be, when we grip and grasp and cling, and it turns out that life is different, when we see that our marriage is over, when we receive the diagnosis, when our father falls in love with a wonderful church, hundreds of wonderful people, and tells the family that we're moving to another state to start a new middle school, when change comes with its 1,000 faces, part of the question is, what holds us? This is Fault Line by Robert Walsh. Did you ever think there might be a fault line passing underneath your living room? A place in which your life is lived in meeting and separating, wondering and telling, unaware that just beneath you is the unseen seam of great plates that strain through time, and that your life, already spilling over the brim, could be invaded, sent off in a new direction, turned aside by forces you were warned about but not prepared for. Shelves could be spilled out, the level floor set at an angle in some seconds shaking. You would have to take your losses, do whatever must be done next. When the great plates slip, and the earth shivers and the flaw is seen to lie in what you trusted most, look not to more solidity, to weighty slabs of concrete poured or strength of cantilevered beam to save the fractured order. Trust more the tensile strands of love that bend and stretch to hold you in the web of life that's often torn but always healing. There's your strength. The shifting plates, the rest of earth, your room, your precious life, they all proceed from love, the ground on which we walk together. I love this. When we find ourselves in times of dissolution, when we find ourselves in times of change, look not to more solidity, but trust the tensile strands of love, this web of life which is torn but always healing. There's your strength. Here's your strength. This is some of my favorite part of who we are in religious community and what we create together. We come back over and over to this web, into this reminder, into this experience of life and love. We hold one another and are held. And one of the most beautiful things about this web and this love is that there's so much bigger than any of us. We never know the full extent of its power. In the last church I served, there was this very sweet guy who started coming. He would come in the back, sit mostly alone, and leave before coffee hour. And he did quite a bit. I would greet him outside on his way in, as I do. He was always warm and open, but never really lingered to talk. After about a year or so, he decided to dive in. He took a new member class. He decided to join the church. And when people join the church, I sit down with them, with everyone, get to know them a little, and help answer any questions they have, and also get them connected to some of the other wonderful things going on. And so we met, and he told me that the week before he came for the very first time, he he was told that he had a tumor in his brain. He was a young guy, previously healthy. He had never experienced anything remotely like that. And he came back week after week as he moved into this unknown. As his identity, as his life, as everything he assumed was true shifted, he came back week after week, shook by the fault lines, and he was held in love. And that made all the difference. He had successful surgery, and last I heard, he was cancer-free. And he dove into deeper involvement at the church, helping ensure this good gift was available to all those who came seeking after him. When the plates shift, look to the web of life, which is often torn but always healing. This is a hard moment we are living in. There's been so much violence, so much uncertainty, so much stress. It matters now even more. It matters, this beautiful thing that we build in our communities. These circles of love and support, these circles of vision and hope. This is the solidity. This is the strength. So many of us united, holding one another, refusing to be discouraged, refusing to be shut off and closed off, but rather reaching out to one another and the wider world, reaching out and saying that there is another way. We come to these supportive circles because we acknowledge that we are not done learning and growing. We come because there is a call to deeper living, to deeper truth. And the beautiful thing about this Unitarian Universalist path is that it is one of discovery. In more than a few meetings with people, the question of Unitarian Universalist theology comes up. Sometimes people say that you can believe whatever you want. And this is partly true. The foundations of that truth are deep because the founding of Unitarianism was a kind of a claw mark moment. I like to ground it all the way back to the 15th century when Gutenberg invented the printing press, because soon after people read the Bible for themselves for the first time. And those first readers soon noticed that there was no mention of the Trinity, no mention of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit they had been hearing so much about. And this is the important part for us this morning. They started to question these truths which they had held in their hands, these truths which had been spoon-fed to them, gift-wrapped by clergy. These truths started to crumble in the heat of their questioning. And so our Unitarian ancestors created new ideas. They dug deep into their experience and their truth, and they made a new way. And this is our legacy. Not just the Bible that we read for ourselves, but all truth, all the wisdom traditions, all the world religions, all life is our sacred text. And our task is to open, to take in the lessons of life, the heartbreak, the times that we are pushed to the brink of our coping, the times when we are barely holding on, and the times of clarity, the sweetest truths which come. Finally saying yes to a love which is loving. Finally stepping into our true selves, feeling at home in our skin. All this living, all this is our sacred text. And this is the gift of our humanist philosophical lineage. Our experience, our direct experience of truth is also a sacred text, is also a source of truth which is worth building around. And so you can believe anything true for you, but the call to forge your own truth is a large one. It is not a blasé, kind of casual experience of making it up as you go along, but rather an invitation to dig deeply into this life, to open to your history, to seek the gifts of your upbringing, to seek out what still rings true to you from your early spiritual life, and to look at the lessons from each chapter of your life, how you've grown and deepened, how you've come closer and closer to the person you most deeply long to be. This is how we are forged. I was a blacksmith for a little while. In Berkeley, California, there is this little artist collective called The Crucible. And there you can take workshops in all sorts of very cool things like neon light production and pinball machine repair, welding and painting and woodworking. And it was there that I learned to blacksmith. There is very little that I have done which is as cathartic as holding steel in a forge, watching it heat and turn orange and supple, and then bringing it to the anvil, lifting the hammer and bringing the hammer down onto it, shaping it with each blow. Every once in a while, a little tiny fleck of hot metal flying onto my arm and burning just a little. It was wonderful. And the spiritual life is like this. These times of dissolution, these difficult times which come, heat us, make us supple and changeable, and our responses to these times shape us. It is these times, especially, in which we become who we are. So it matters that we open, that we know in advance that these days will come, that we know that all we hold will one day change, that transformation is always underway, and in the midst of all this change, in the midst of all this life, that we are held by this love, by this strong and vast love. We are held by our history, by this long story stretching back through time, whose current chapter we are writing together. We are held by this truth that we explore, by this path that we create together. We are held in this torn and glorious web, healing over and over, growing stronger and more beautiful and more true. We are held, and held in this kind of love, all things are possible. I have said it a couple times, but a friend and teacher once told me that it is said that when one door closes, another door opens, but it is hell in the hallway. And we are so often in the hallway, and we have been now so long in the hallway. When the great plates slip, and the earth shivers, and the flaw is seen to lie in what you trusted most, look not to more solidity, to weighty slabs of concrete poured, or strength of cantilevered beam to save the fractured order. Trust more the tensile strands of love that bend and stretch to hold you in the web of life that's often torn but always healing. There's your strength. Shifting plates, the rest of earth, this room, this precious life, they all proceed from love, the ground on which we walk together. Amen.
There is a love holding me. There is a love holding all that I love. There is a love holding me. I rest in this love. I rest.